Okay, I'm just going to do a short little part 2 of this winter identification. And we got here is rattlesnake plantain. Okay, I showed this before, but I figured I'd put it in the winter ID because it's fairly easy to identify. Your other plantains are pretty easy to identify too, you know, broadleaf and narrowleaf, but a lot of people can mistake them for grass, but this one here is unmistakable. Once you see it, you know what you got. And this one here actually still has the stem coming out the center with the seeds at the top. See, it goes right down in the center of this one. And like I said before, this is quite a rare plant, so don't use it if you don't have to. You know, it can be used for snake bites, hence its name. See, that's that stem right there going right up the center. But here we have rattlesnake plantain. Very cool plant. Feels very velvety, kind of soft to the touch. Okay, there's nothing on the bottom of the leaves, but just some lightish green color. But a very interesting plant. And quite easy to identify in the wintertime if you stumble across it. Rattlesnake plantain. Here we have another fairly easy to identify tree. You know what, Christmas time always has these leaves, and that's because this is the holly. American holly. Okay, see them nice pokey little leaves there? And they're sharp. You walk through a thick bunch of these and brush past it, you'll know it. Okay, that's holly. Now, the bark's really smooth, like a beech tree that I showed you. Okay, but the huge feature is these evergreen leaves that remain here all winter long, and it'll get red berries all over it. I'll put a picture up of that I took. A really huge holly, lots of berries on it. Okay, berries aren't edible, don't eat them. You can make a tea out of these leaves if prepared correctly, and a lot of appellations actually make this thing called black drink. I've never tried it. I've made tea out of some hollies, Yaupon holly, Ilex vomitoria. I've made a tea out of that, which has got the highest amount of caffeine in nature in North America. Okay, here we have another wonderful tree to identify in the wintertime. Another evergreen. This is the eastern hemlock. Okay. Now, has flat needles, so we don't want to confuse this with the yew tree if there's a yew in your area. Okay, the yew tree is highly toxic and you don't want to go playing around with it. But I'm going to show you some features here that sets this one apart. Okay, now when it's young like this, and I've had this in other videos, you know, a lot of these plants I have, but I just want to go over just the identification so you guys can get a good idea what these plants look like, and then you can go from there and learn their uses. And I showed you the couple uses with this right here, how it'll stop bleeding. But we look at this bark here, and these young ones, it's very very smooth. Okay, and it has these little nodules here that grow in little sections all over here. But for the most part, it's fairly smooth, kind of like a white pine. Okay. Now another identification is we take these leaves on the front here. You know, right here, we can see that they're just green. And they come to a slight point. Okay, they're not just flattened on the end, they come to a little bit of a point. And then we flip them over, and you notice that there's these two bluish, whitish lines. Okay, let me try to get this in here. Alright, there you go. See them two white lines? That right there tells me that I have an eastern hemlock. Okay. Now another thing you can do, always remember, use all your senses. Some of these trees have unique smells, like even slippery elm, which I use as a medicinal a lot, has a unique sweet smell to it that is unmistakable. It's just, there's some trees that smell similar, but once you know it, you know it. This one here, you just take some of these leaves and give it a smell. Okay, has a very citrusy, not the same as pine. It's more of an orange kind of citrus cleaner type smell. Okay, once you get used to that, you'll know. It's a very nice smell. I think it's a pleasant smell. It smells better than pine in my opinion. But That's what the younger tree looks like. All the leaves are going to be the same on the older ones, but the bark on the older trees is going to get a little bit more furrowed, okay? Okay, now here's an older eastern hemlock. You can see at the top there, it's still kind of smooth, but we come down, it starts getting flaky. Okay, and this one here is even larger. We'll take a look at this guy. Okay, you see these, starts to grow these furrows here. Bark gets a little bit flaky, like this. Okay, it's a tougher bark. It's not flexible. It's kind of like a flaky pine, but it's not a pine. Once the tree gets older, it gets a little more furrows in it, a little more pronounced. Loses some of these flakes. So if we can get one of them, I'll show you what that looks like as well. Here's one that's fairly easy to identify as well. You ever hear the term walking through briars? Well, this is where that term comes from. Now there's also brambles, like raspberries and blackberries and dewberries and such, which have thorns like this. But this green one is in the briar family. There are multiple briars in the green briar family. I think I showed some in Florida and talked a lot about the uses of it in one of them Florida plant uses videos. But if you see a big growth like this where there's a lot of thorns, stems really green, in the summertime it'll have leaves that are unmistakable. But for the winter, it just kind of grows these little thorns. They grow by trees, away from trees. See, this one here is growing straight up. Okay, that right there is a greenbrier. And in the springtime, you can actually use the tender new growths that grow off the tips of these. Like this one here will have a good one. Right here off the tip, that'll have a new growth. It's actually quite tasty, very tender. But so if you ever wonder what this thorny beast is that you have to walk through, because usually it'll grow in huge patches. You can see there's a huge patch of it right here as well. And then you got to trudge through it and tear yourself all to pieces if you ain't got pants on. Whole bunch of it right here, right there, right back here. So there you have it. There's greenbrier.